I was the youngest of 6 kids. My mom did not take care of me. I moved from Kentucky to Wayne, Michigan with my sister and my brother-in-law. He started trying to push himself on me. He came into my bedroom and he took my virginity. Then a month before my 14th birthday, he came to me and he said that he wanted to have a party in my honor. He took me up to this bedroom and there was one of those computers with the webcam pointed at the bed, and this other guy come in and he introduced him to me as my doctor. And I said, I don't understand why I need a doctor. And he was like, because I love you, I care about you, and I don't want you to be hurt. So that night, 6 different men came into that room. The doctor would come in between each man, and he would take my blood pressure and my vitals and make sure I could continue. The next morning I woke up and I couldn't even move. Every weekend, sometimes throughout the week, I had broken ribs and I had cigarette burns, I had bite marks. I was almost 16 and a half, and he ended up locking me in the bedroom for the weekend. And I remember thinking, I can't do this anymore. His punishment was my moment of clarity.
People want to associate human trafficking as this terrible, heinous thing that happens across the water, or, it happens in other places in the world. It's right in your backyard. It could be your child, your daughter, your son.
Trafficking is business. It's about money. It's not about sex. The person that's doing the trafficking and scamming and torture is getting paid, and the person who's being sold is getting nothing. They might be getting a roof over their head or not having their ribs broken. It's selling a person against their will, either through force, coercion, or fraud, to do something that they wouldn't do on their own.
Trafficking doesn't mean they have to move across boundaries, doesn't mean they have to move across international lines.
Lots of people ask, what's the difference, or where do you draw the line between prostitution and sex trafficking? And the answer is, you have to decide if someone is compelled to perform the commercial sex act. If compulsion exists, then sex trafficking exists. No physical violence has to occur. Psychological coercion is enough of a compulsion.
Trafficking by its very nature is a largely hidden crime. For every case that's prosecuted, there are many other victims out there. So how do you sort of extrapolate numbers? And there's no accurate way to do that.
I talk to survivors from what we would say upper middle class areas like Grosse Pointe Park. We know that it's happening in the poor areas. It's going to go where the demand is.
You can go to the west side of the state. It's very large over there, Grand Rapids, Holland. You can go up to Saginaw. It's a big problem wherever you go.
A victim can be an infant all the way through to an adult. Male, female, transgendered. A trafficker fits no stereotype.
Victims can be sold anywhere. Victims can be picked up anywhere. With the use of social media, Facebook, Kick Messenger, Snapchat, people get a hold of people so much easier.
You can literally go onto a public domain website and order sex, even with a child, and have it delivered to your room like a pizza within the hour.
Most people don't think that they live in a drug-free community, so I'm always astounded that people think they live in a sex trafficking-free community. We just have to own the ugly, own that it's happening, and then we can come up with solutions that make sense.
I was a young girl, vulnerable, needy, like so many are. And I met a guy later on, and I thought that he loved me and made all these promises to me. And, the next thing you know, it was meeting men in hotels that I didn't know. I didn't know how to get out. This was a man who threatened your family, threatened you. He was the kind of man who would leave literal footprints in your chest. There was no way out. They don't just let you leave. No, and you're already afraid. You're so scared. You are so scared. They have you so frightened. And you know what they're capable of because you know what they've done to you before. You know what they've done to other women. I ended up shooting him. I shot him. He died. I was in prison for 17 years. When I finally was released, I went right into the University of Michigan School of Social Work, and that's what I did. I became a social worker.
I lived in a gated community. I lived in a secured building. My trafficker invited me via a business card, sharing information on an elevator. My monster slid business cards for entertainment and modeling and money. Yeah, my monster had business cards. He was a resident where I lived. I was kidnapped in my own building. The lies, the trickery, there wasn't even very much used on me. I was invited to do a massage in which that was one of the things that I did. In my own building where I lived, I found out his real names because they weren't the ones that were on the business card. But by the time I found out his real names, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that he forced me to do sexual things with over 400 men at that point. And it took a lot of energy to make it through all that I endured during those 4 months. It felt like forever. Every moment of every day. I was beaten so bad that I couldn't even look in the mirror. I must honestly say it was the Lord that brought me back to strength, courage, and determination. In my story, the monster takes his life.
We have decades and decades and decades of treating every single person in the commercial sex industry, except the buyers, as criminals. And so law enforcement has adopted those attitudes of communities. It's a hard shift to say that people you've treated as criminals for decades might in fact be victims.
And we think, oh, they chose this. No one says, I want to sleep with 20 men a day. Come on, there's something going on.
More people will come forward for help if they know that they're not going to be re-victimized. That would make a world of difference.
One of the biggest problems right now when women get out, there's no place to put them. There are no beds. Maybe one over here, one over there.
It's all disconnected out there. Survivors don't always know the next step, and their day is spent just grasping for services.
Most of the shelters being built, not all, but most, are only targeting minors and girls, and that is one slice of the pie. The rest of the pie is being ignored in most cases. Think of the counseling that's needed for somebody who's raped dozens of times every day for years. What's really needed is trauma-informed responses to these individuals.
Most of these women are being trafficked through poverty, force, or drug addiction. Now, why would a man seek out the most vulnerable being and then throw money at her feet and rape her?
It's always been the bias that John isn't the bad one. If that girl wasn't on the street selling herself, then he wouldn't be out there buying it. And that's how a lot of people look at it, instead of the other way around.
Don't condemn the women for selling themselves, but yet not condemn the men who buy them.
Your daughter can be sitting in her American history class and she can get 40 hits an hour on her cell phone going, I'm a 14-year-old, you're a 14-year-old, I like pink, you like pink, let's meet at McDonald's. It's no 14-year-old. And that's how it comes into every socioeconomic group.
Times have changed a whole lot. A lot of pimps today are businessmen. They're on the internet and on the PlayStations and, you know, at the malls. And it has nothing to do with color. It has nothing to do with how much you have.
If you see something and it doesn't look right and you get that feeling, don't keep it silent. Take that one moment to make a change or to use your voice.
Now that you know the problem and you know that you're the solution, how do you step into this in your own unique way?